Nearly there. Okay, so we're back to Zoom. So we've got Peter, Helen, Gary, and Tony. Welcome. Um, we've got quite a bit of news this afternoon. Um, so I'll start with that. Right, okay. So it's somebody's obviously struggling to get on. Okay. Um, right, so if I move you guys out of the way. Okay. We've got at 1:15, we've got some, according to this, it's moderate news. And at 1:30, we've got moderate news. And also, we've got, strangely enough, we've got some high impact news at 1:45. So it may be worth me having a look at, as we used to do, we used to always check the news and we used to look at two sources of news. So I'm going to look at, where are we? My FX book, Economic Calendar. It's good practice to always check the news before you start trading. And I've been a bit remiss recently. So 1:15 UK time, we've got high impact. It's on the euro, and it's about the interest rate decision. So that I would say is definitely high impact news, and it will have an effect on the market. Then you've got at 1:30, you've got low and medium, but you've got all of these high impact US dollar news items. So that's bound to impact the market. And then at 13:45, you've got high impact news. It's a press conference, but it's about the interest rate change at 1:15. So maybe not quite as much impact on that, but definitely we're going to have some price movement in the next half hour or so. I'll go back and share my screen. Give me 1 second. So, right, we've got this issue with the MT5 news source. Not sure how we're going to deal with that, but we've definitely got three times this afternoon when there could potentially be some changes in the market, but also don't forget that the big boys, the big institutions, always, well, not always, but quite often use the news to disguise their price manipulation. So at least one of those times there will be some price manipulation. And my attitude really is I don't get into trades which are around about the news. So my settings are 5 minutes before and 5 minutes after the news. Don't get me into any new trades. You might be wondering what this panel here is at the top. And you might have noticed that I'm actually in the trade on GBP USD. I was just messing about when I was about to come on. This panel, I think Paul's talked about it on one of his sessions previously. It's part of the latest version of Crossfire that I've got from Oliver. So I'm now on 1.08 brackets 1, and it includes this, which basically is an instant. You can click on B for buy, and it will get you into an instant buy using the parameters that you've set. In other words, I'm risking 0.5% to make 1%, and it gets me in, and it's gold lines, and it's telling me that I'm currently 2 pips in profit. So I'm just going to leave that running.
Is that without the trend lines that's being drawn, Richard?
So say again?
Is that without the trend lines?
Yes, you can you can press these buttons at any time of day. So it doesn't, the fact that we're talking about Crossfire doesn't actually come into it. It just allows you to manually trade using the settings that you've put in on the Crossfire pair. So it is to do with Crossfire, and in another way, it's got nothing to do with Crossfire, because we're not looking at the trends, which is the basis of the Crossfire. But I was just messing about. I just thought, well, I'll just make sure this is working. I'm just going to check how it works. I probably need to get out because my policy is I don't want to be in a trade 5 minutes before high impact news, and I'm regarding this news here, which if I hover over that, it probably tell me what the news is. But the MT5 is telling me it's moderate news, but I'm going to regard it as high impact news because it's an interest rate decision for the euro. So I'm currently 2.7 pips. So just going to check that this works. I'm going to get out at the minute, and if I press this CV, which stands for close by, it should instantly take me out. There we go. Trade closed manually by. There we go. So it's just taken me out at less profit than I would have got if I'd got to my take profit. But I've just proved to myself that these buttons work. They're actually connected. So we have to talk about the trend lines, and following Tuesday's session, I've been in touch with Oliver and I've explained what we would like him to do, and he's agreed to do that for me. It hasn't come back to me just yet, but basically we're going to try, or Oliver's going to try and go back to where we started, which was, if we go back to, I've got a few minutes before the trend lines are drawn, so I'm going to stop sharing that and I'm going to go to my trading view charts. There we go. I've got it on there. So, for the benefit of anybody new, anybody watching the replay, this is how we used to trade manually, trade the Crossfire strategy. We started off on the 15-minute chart. We are looking at these top four pairs, those four there, and we wait until that 1 minute candle closes, and then we draw two trend lines. Also on TradingView, we've got the reminders here of news. So there's European, there's US, and there's further European news, all within the next half hour or so. So what we would do is we would draw a couple of trend lines, quite roughly, one trend line above where price is at the minute. I would probably take it to somewhere around about 4 o'clock. Time's disappeared off the bottom there, but anyway, I'll put it there. So I'll put a green trend line above where price is at the minute, and I'll put a red trend line below where price is at the minute, and I'm looking to change that to red. Doesn't want to do it. Why would it do that? Let me just try and move that. So I need to change this one to red. And in 2 minutes' time, what I'll be doing is looking at the top of the 1 o'clock candle, including the wick. And I normally just put my cursor right alongside it. And then I look left and I find that at the minute, that is the nearest higher candle. So I can put that in place because I can always move it. So that is currently slightly higher than where we are at the minute. And if I look at the bottom and look left, I can see that that candle there is slightly lower. So I don't know why I've done that. So those are really roughly in place. I'll move them out of the way just so we don't get confused. And when that candle closes in less than a minute's time, we can accurately place those trend lines. Now that is what Oliver is going to do for me, and then we need to drop down. Now we used to just drop down to the 2 minute, and for MT5 reasons, we've sort of avoided the 2 minute, but we now discovered that we can actually drop down to the 2 minutes on MT5, or at least we should be able to. So that's something else that Oliver's going to address. He hasn't enabled the 2 minute. Well, it hasn't enabled the wide choice of timeframes on the Crossfire. I think he's done it on other trading assistants, but anyway, I'm going to take that magnet tool off. I'm just going to double check this because it's pretty close. Take the magnet off. Just move it out of the way. So there we are. There's the 115 news, by the way. There was the euro interest rate has just been announced, and some people like to trade the news. I prefer not to trade the news because you never really you are entering the realms of gambling because you never know whether price is going to go up or down. There's very often quite a big movement, as you've just seen there. But you know, on the subject of price manipulation, the market is responding to the euro interest rate announcement. But look how they pushed it all the way up there and then immediately brought it back down again. And it wouldn't surprise me if they don't move it back down here in the same candle. Look at it; it's going up and down. It's going mad. Basically what they're doing is they're taking out stop losses. So if you were looking at these candles and thinking price is going to go down and you get in for a sell, well, they've just taken out your stop loss up there. And there'll be millions of dollars worth of stop losses up there. So they've just had a good payday. Right, so I'll go back to where I was. I'm looking at the bottom of this red candle here. I'm trying to get my cursor on level with the bottom, and I can see that is still the nearest lower candle. So if I take that to touch, that's in place, and then that is still slightly higher than the 1 o'clock one. So I'll put the magnet tool back on, and it should snap into place. Well, it would if I hadn't just turned the magnet off. So that's in position. And there should be a very slight decline on that candle. So I've gone from the nearest higher candle to the top of the 1 o'clock, and I've gone from the nearest lower candle to the bottom of the 1 o'clock. So as you can see, even along here, which is 1745, there's no crossover, which is quite unusual, but there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't mean to say it's wrong. You just need to move that out of the way because that hasn't actually snapped into position. That should snap into position. There we go. That's it. So if you extended those two trend lines, there would be a point where eventually they do cross, but it'll be out of our time range. We're looking to take trades anytime between 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock. We used to take them between 1 and 3, and then we noticed a change in the market, and we quite often get a price movement after 3 o'clock. So we've extended it to 1 to 4. So then, if I was trading this manually, I would drop down. I used to drop down to the 2-minute chart, so let's do that. And you can see that it looks a little bit strange. It doesn't look exactly like it did before, but it is accurate because it's taking it from that point there to the top of the candle, and it's taking it from the bottom of the candle to the lower low, which was there. So it is accurate. What we need to remember is that the gap between the two trend lines is what we call no man's land, and we should never ever take a trade while price is in no man's land. We always wait until price either breaks above the green or below the red before we start looking for trades. I'm going to drop it down to the 1 minute because my MT5 is currently set on 1 minute. So it's still, those two lines look almost parallel. So let's see what's happened on the right. So that's looking different, isn't it? But this is something that I've asked Oliver to look at. I want him to replicate what I've just done on TradingView, and he's certainly got it to the lowest point there, but he's the lowest point there. Well, I'm gonna spend some time on this. The lowest point, as far as I can see, is. Sorry, say again?
You can't see your MT5.
All right, okay. I shall go back and where are we? Go back to Zoom. Stop sharing. Right. So you should now be able to see my MT5. I was just saying that these trend lines don't look the same as they did on the TradingView chart. And I was just about to draw a line across the lowest point. So this is that's the 1 o'clock line. The 115 is hidden behind the orange one. So I need to get a line in position there. So that's the bottom. That's the lowest point we were looking at 1 15-minute candle, and now we're looking at 15 1-minute candles, but that is still the low point. So if you look left, when we're looking at these dull green candles, that one is slightly higher, that one is lower. So actually that, for some reason, that is okay, but it's different to what we've got on TradingView because they were virtually parallel, weren't they? Anyway, Oliver's having a look at that and he's going to get back to me as soon as possible. What we can do, if you're worried about that, you can take the view that price at the minute, even if that line started from up here, price would still be in no man's land. So let's draw another trend line here. No, that's not a trend line, but we need to get rid of that. If I draw a trend line and I draw it from where, more or less where I thought it should have been, which was there. What's going on? Yeah, so that's more or less where my TradingView said it should be. If I make that a bit thicker. Okay, so that's a bit thicker. So that is the sort of level that my trading view was showing that trend line. So it's still in no man's land. So we're waiting for it to either go above the green trend line, which is pretty accurate, or below my version of the red trend line before we get into a trade. So once it gets above the green trend line or below the red trend line, the trading assistant will step into action and say, okay, if I'm below the red trend line, I'm only looking for sells. So it looks here and it looks for the latest wave change. If I change that to line going, so the actual candles are now a green line, and the other candles, these are Heikin-Ashi candles. So green Heikin-Ashis on the rise, and then it changed to red Heikin-Ashis on the decline. And I believe it's just changed at that point back to green. So we're looking for a recent wave change, but we need it to be from green to red because we're only looking for sells. So the trader assistant won't look any further. It'll say when we are below the red, it'll say price is below the red trend line. Have we got a recent wave change from green to red? And if we haven't, it doesn't look any further. If we do have a recent wave change from red to green, from green to red, because we're looking for sells, it'll then look for a recent MA crossover. Now, one of the reasons why I took this daft trade here was I was noticing that in all the time that we've got in view, and I'll move it to one side to prove what I was thinking. It's been ages since the MA crossover. There was a crossover, and that was sort of at 10:30 this morning. But ever since then, you had a nice steady rise in price, and the 13 has been consistently moving away from the 200 moving average. So the 200 is moving upwards, but so is the what am I trying there? So the 200 is moving upwards steadily, and the 13 is a bit more volatile than 200 because it's only looking at the previous 13 candles. The 200 is obviously looking at the previous 200 candles, but the two are sort of running in parallel. And that is an example of when I might override the need to have an MA cross. Because price, since 10:30 this morning, has been 13 has been above the 200, and it's almost consistently been on the rise. These little pullbacks going on here. There's another pullback there, another slow one there, another one there. But in the longer term, prices creeping steadily upwards. But that is an example of a situation where I might, if everything else was in line, consider getting in. Now, at the point that I got in there, when I was messing about before I came on, the reason I got in was because the Water Atta was telling me I could get in for a buy. The white explosion line is moving away from the orange dead zone line, and the histogram is a dark green, and it's above the explosion line. So those are ideal circumstances to get in for a buy. Once we got past that point, it kind of went against us, and you can see that price went up to that point and then it came back down. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's not a reason to jump in and get out of the trade at that point because, well, I can see that price is still above the 13 moving average. I can see that we've still got green Heikin-Ashis. They're not quite as big as they were there as they were at that point, but I would still stay in. And in fact, I did stay in, and you can see I got out there And the reason I got out was because of the imminent news. But that's a good example of when I could be tempted to override the one of the four criteria. So the four criteria are: are we above the green or below the red? Has there been a recent change of wave, Heikenhachi wave, in my direction? Has there been a recent crossover? And in this case, there wasn't a recent crossover, but I overrode it because this was telling me I could get in for a buy. And at that time, what we had here was WAE signal, and it would have said long. So that was my encouragement to get in. Obviously I would have to be trading manually. I'd have to be sitting at my chart to manage that trade, but I made a few clicks.
Funny enough, Richard, on there since 10:30, it's entered the 70% zone on there, and it's just about finished at yesterday's POC.
Right. Okay. POC is something that I used to look at when I was trading manually, and it's a guide. It's a point of interest, well, it's a point of control, but it's definitely a point of interest. I think, oh, here we go. We've got some more news. Look what's happening. That's suddenly shot up. Prices suddenly shot down. Change that to a candle. There we go. So we've now got a red candle going all the way down here. So do you remember when I said at 4:15 they took price up and took out stop losses up here? Well, they've just done the opposite. They pushed it down. They've taken out stop losses down here. At the risk of repeating myself, I would not be in a trade when there's such high impact news. It's more akin to gambling. You could make a fortune if you guess the right way, but I don't like guessing. So they took it up at 4:15. They've taken it down at 30:30. They might make another move at 1:45. Let's have a look at the other pairs. That's GBP. So this was high impact news on the US dollar. This was high impact news on the euro. So euro USD, that's a combination of the two. And I'll put the candles on. There's a handy little thing there where you can zoom in and get everything a little bit bigger. So you see how price is just moving sideways. It looked as if price might be going down, and then they whacked it up there, and then again up there, just on a stop hunt loss, a stop hunt. They're taking out people's stop losses, and then in the opposite direction, whack it down. It's going to go back up to where it started, normally does, but they quite cynically push it all the way down there. Now the market will have had some effect, but I doubt if the market on its own would have had that dramatic effect there. I think there's quite a bit of manipulation going on. So on this pair, actually, I've been talking about different pairs when I've been looking at the MT5. I think I was looking at Euro US. And then when I came back to MT5, I think I must have been on a different pair, because here we've got very similar, we're almost parallel. I'm pretty sure that's what I was looking at before. Let me just stop share and go back.
You were on GBP US before, Richard.
Yeah, I think I was. Yeah. I think I was before. I'm not now. I'm currently on Euro USD. But Euro USD on TradingView is almost parallel. That's what I was just looking at before, wasn't it? Euro US. So that's the same. But just ignore the last 10 minutes. We're now below the red trend line. So the trading assistant is thinking, I'm looking for sells. I'll get that back down to normal. So next thing it looks for, has there been a recent wave change? Well, we're currently in a red Heikin-Ashi situation, and we were previously in a green. So that was the change of wave there. So that was only 7 minutes ago, 7 bars ago. So that qualifies for it's supporting the fact that we're below the red trend line. We've also had a change of wave in a downward direction. We've also got a moving average crossover within the last 5 candles. So that's 3 confirmations that we should be getting in for a sell. And the 4th confirmation is down here, the water atta, and it just changed them. When I started saying that, it actually said short because we were still in that scenario where it was saying positive for a sell, but it's now changed to no trade. But it won't get me in for a trade because remember, I told the trading assistant not to get in the trade 5 minutes before and 5 minutes after. Now, so it's still in that no trading time. It's saying 13:34 there. My computer time is 13:35. But when this changes to 13:35, it may well get me in. If this is saying short, it will get me in. So we need to wait 7 seconds. Okay, so there's a new candle. We're back in the trade zone. So the 5 minutes, 5 minutes after the news is now it's no longer relevant. But the water atta, because these histogram bars are in decline, that's why they changed colour from dark red to, I think that's an orange. But also the side, the height of them is in decline. So that's why it's saying no trade. We want them to be on the rise. Now, Helen noticed something the other day that I hadn't really noticed, and that was that we had it's not exactly the same here, but we had 3 or 4 histogram bars where the explosion line was pointing away from the dead zone and the histogram was above the explosion line, and yet it still didn't get me in. And I've been back testing that, and I've raised that with Oliver this morning and just said, is it if we were trading manually, we would have that scenario, we would have been getting in on that, certainly on that candle, possibly on that candle. And I'm just going to go back to my trading view to demonstrate that. Stop share that. Okay. So if we can try and ignore the fact that there's a massive up there, but you see here, I mean, it's irrelevant because we would be trading news if we got in, but the example would be that explosion line was certainly above. It's certainly pointing away from the dead zone, and the histogram was above the explosion line, and that is a scenario that I would have got in at. not today, because that is the news. But if we go further back, let's go back to 15 minutes. Here, I would have got in on that candle, because that's the first point at which the explosion line moved away from the dead zone, and the histogram was above the explosion line. So that would be my entry, would have been on that candle there, and it would have gone up to the top of there. Just measure that. So there's only 4 pips in that, but that's not the best example. But here, there's another example. I would have got in on that candle. So we need to adjust the water atta criteria. And I've just messaged Oliver and said, is that something that I can adjust on my settings, or is it something that you need to adjust? So I'm waiting for a reply on that. But if we can get it so that it totally replicates how I used to trade manually, it would be on a bit firmer footing. There's a good example there. That's the first point at which the explosion line is pointing away from the dead zone. The histogram is above the explosion line. You mark that. If I got in for a sell on that candle there, certainly I've got a few pips out of that move, but then if I'd stayed in, I could have got a lot more pips down to there. So I think it's worth getting a special. There's a better, well, that's a good example of when I would have got in. That's a better example, because then you're almost entirely into profit. So we'll go back and compare my M25. So the reason that the trading assistant hasn't got me in is because of this continued decline. We need the histogram bars to be above the explosion line. We need the explosion line to be pointing away from the dead zone. So that's now pointing downwards, so that won't get me in. We're also in a no trading zone because of news. So I think what we're looking at this afternoon is, I need to go and have a look at that on my Facebook. So they're saying that quarter past 2, there's some more news, but I'm not sure what it is. So I'm out of a trade until 5 minutes past that line, and then I've got a little gap, and maybe I can get in on here. Have a look at the front side. That's very similar, isn't it? Yeah, they're all looking pretty much the same. This is interesting. If price comes and breaks below, sorry, if the MA 13 MA, the yellow line, crosses the white 200 moving average, we might be looking at a sell situation. Let's just check where my trend line is. Yeah, so we'll go back and check this. The red trend line is way up there. It's already crossed over. So we're below the red. We're also below the green. If that crosses over and we've got a wave change downwards, we'll just be looking for the water atta to confirm. Let's go back and have a look on the trading view, because where's the So this is the 15-minute slot. That must be the lowest point. Down here. No, that hasn't gone correctly. The highest point is probably correct. The lowest point probably isn't. Let's go back. Yeah. Just as a matter of interest, we'll go back and look at that. So we're looking at horizontal and round about 30 degrees angle on that. Rolling on Euro card or need to reload that. Okay, so we're definitely on a Canadian dollar pair. Is it that one or that one? Let's just, we need to be back on 15 minutes. We need to find the 1 o'clock candle, which is that green one. So the top of that candle there, looking left, there is nothing any higher. So that's going to be, the green trend line is going to be horizontal. The red trend line is going to go down to that one there. So it's going to be quite a steep. It's going to be more than 30 degrees. Let's have a look at the other one. So that's the 1 o'clock candle. Looking at the top, there's nothing. I only look back to the start, as far as the start of today's session, so there's nothing there. So that's definitely a horizontal line. The next one, yeah, is probably about right because you could count that. Yeah, that red one is definitely very slightly lower. That's what it's been looking at. So it would be, yeah, that would be about right. If we're on Eurocard, we'll go back. No, we will look on GBP card. So there's still an anomaly there, but that's something that Oliver's looking at right now. But in any event, we are below the red trend line because even if the red trend line was slightly flatter, well, whichever way it was, it would still be below the red trend line. So we're definitely looking for a sell, and that's confirmed here. Look, it's only looking for a sell signal because we're below the red trend line. However, the second thing we look for is a change of wave, and we need the wave to change from upwards green to downwards red. And we would also like the moving average, the 13, to cross over the 200, and then we're in a good selling situation, provided the water atta confirmed, and at the minute it doesn't. So the trading assistant won't get me in and wouldn't get me in until the Heikin-Ashi changes direction. There's a crossover of the moving average and the water atta needs to be showing short over there. Okay, I think I've just about done as much as I can. I'm waiting for Oliver to come back to me on these few things that I've questioned. Does anybody have any questions?
No, that's good. Thank you, Richard.
Okay. I think
I guess my only comment is that somehow it seems to have started showing red news again.
yes, I've noticed that. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'm going to go into my settings and just change. If I change my settings, see if it makes any difference. So Euro USD properties. I'm definitely on moderate because that was what we were advised to do. And I'll just try it. So I'm now on high impact. And oh, there we go. So that's a red line, and that's a red line. So it's becoming a bit more like we expect. I don't know if Oliver's tweaked something or not, but yeah, it looks like we've got back to where we were with the news.
Yeah, I hadn't actually changed my crossfire to moderate. I'd left it at high, but it still wasn't showing red news last week. But now, or maybe even earlier this week, but now it's showing it.
Yeah, well, it wasn't even this morning. It wasn't because I was all I had on my screen was orange lines. It was telling me that there was. It was giving me the description of the news when I hover over it, but it wasn't. It was well. These earlier lines certainly weren't reflecting the strength of the news. So we've got in 9 seconds, this no trading will disappear and we'll be able to do some trades. It's been unfortunate that we've had 1, 2, 3 new high impact news items. See, that one's just changed to red. I'm pretty sure that was orange a second ago. Anyway, we've now got a sell signal. We're not barred from trading because we're 5 minutes after the news. So I've just to round off. I'll go through what I'm waiting for on each of the 4 pairs. I'm on Euro US. Okay, so I'm below the red trend line, so I'm only looking for sells. However, if the current situation continues and price goes up, I'll be waiting for price to get above the green trend line, and then I'll be looking for buys. So I'll be looking for a recent wave change from red to green. I'll be looking for the yellow moving average to cross over the white moving average, and then I'll be looking for this the explosion line to be pointing upwards. I'm just gonna, if anybody knows how to do this, please let me know. It's vein of my life at the minute. I keep trying different ways to get this to save and it won't. So I'm going to change that to white. I'm going to change the width. And however I try and save this, it doesn't save it. So anyway, so I've got to put it on every time I put a new set on. So there we are. We've got the white explosion line. It's beginning, well, it is pointing away from the dead zone, but it's not dark green. It needs the height of that histogram needs to be higher than that one there, and then we'll be in a better position. So I'm either looking for it to turn round and go down and get a sell, or I'm waiting for it to go above the green, and then we'll start looking for a buy. It's telling me there is news in 1 hour and 23 minutes. So we've got time to get some trades now. But it's got some way to go before it's either a buy or a sell. I'll look at the GBP USD. Very similar, actually. I'm below whichever red trend line you want to go with. I'm definitely below it, so I'm looking for sells. That's confirmed there. But it looks like we might have an MA crossover, and we've got green histogram upward wave, so there's nothing going on there. We need price to either turn around and keep on going down, or we need to get above the green trend line. Yeah, very similar. And that's the odd one out, really. QVP card. The reason that's the odd one out is it's neither a euro pair nor a US dollar pair, and that's where the big news was this afternoon. So that pair hasn't been as badly affected as the others. I'll try and put the candles on. There we go. So there's been no recent MA crossover. That's the problem there. So basically, I would keep out of that until it gets above the green trend line, and then I would look to see if there's enough room to profit before it hits the red trend line. If I was thinking about a buy, but what it actually is telling me to keep out in any event. So I'm going to call it a day. Thanks for jumping on. And
I have one quick question, Richard.
yeah,
please.
sure.
In
Yeah.
the blue box
Sure.
where it says HA look back bar,
Yeah,
what is that referring to?
I've just before I came on, I messaged Oliver to say I've noticed that the HA back bar doesn't agree with what I consider the back bar. So I'll go through that with you. But it's something that I've raised with Oliver.
Okay, fine. But if it's a query, then don't worry about going through it.
No, I'll go through it anyway because it's really useful. Can you see here where the Heikanashi was red and then it changed to green, and it's now just changed to red, but it's still telling me that, well, as I read it, the Heikanashi back bar last change was changed there to 10, so it's looking back to that point. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's actually 15 green Heikanashi candles there, and yet that's telling me that it's looking back 10. Now, I'll be honest, I don't know what that means, but I've asked Oliver to clarify for me why there's 15 green candles. If it's measuring to the wave change, it would be there, and that's more than 10 back bars. So
Also, it doesn't seem to be
you just raised the same question I've just raised with Oliver. There's a discrepancy. Is it affecting trades, which it may be, and if so, can we change it?
Because it doesn't. Mine isn't changing when you get in. Oh yes, okay. It's just changed with another new candle.
Yeah. But you know, it's a really valid point, and I've got a couple of other questions that I want to raise with Oliver.
Okay, all right. We'll wait on that answer then. Thank you very much.
Okay. So it's Thursday, but I'm not on tomorrow, so have a good weekend, and I'll see you on Tuesday. If I get anything from Oliver in between, if he sends me a new version, I'll put that in the chat for you.
Thanks, Richard. I'm away next week, so I probably won't see you till the week after.
Okay.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank
Take care now.
Richard.
Enjoy your weekend.
And you. Cheers now. Bye.
See you, bye.